Right now, somewhere in America, a woman is sitting in a quiet room overlooking the city skyline, and almost nobody outside her professional circle knows what she truly owns. You are not wearing a multimillion-dollar diamond necklace to breakfast. You are not flashing screenshots of investment portfolios to strangers on the internet. And you are definitely not trusting your entire family's financial future to one single bank account. And as you sit there sipping your coffee, watching the morning light move across your desk, you let out a quiet, knowing smile. Because that woman is you. You are the millionaire. You are the owner. You are the architect of a fortune worth $100 million or more. And over the years, you have mastered the real quiet art that separates temporary high earners from enduring dynastic builders. You actually know how to preserve money. You know how to keep it, how to protect it, and how to structure it so that it lives outside the reach of chaos, lawsuits, economic storms, and generational decline. For almost your entire adult life, society tried to hand you a financial playbook designed for ordinary consumption and ordinary limitations. They taught you to trade time for a salary, to save whatever small percentage was left after taxes, and to store your life's labor in a personal bank account under your own legal name. They told you that if you ever managed to become truly wealthy, success meant buying ostentation, drawing attention to your balance sheet, or perhaps chasing some risky, illegal fantasy about hiding suitcases of cash in an untraceable offshore tax haven. You looked at both of those narratives, you saw right through them, and you rejected them completely. Because as your wealth grew from your first few $1 million into tens of millions, and finally toward that extraordinary 9-figure milestone, you realized an uncomfortable but liberating truth. The moment you achieve serious financial success, earning money and preserving money become two completely different disciplines. Earning requires ambition, speed, calculated risk, and market visibility. Preservation requires structure, deliberation, legal separation, privacy, and long-term architectural patience. When friends or acquaintances ask you that typical conversational question, "Where do you actually keep your money?" you never give them the simple, satisfying answer they are looking for. You do not name one megabank or point to a single vault. Because you understand the fundamental principle that drives every lasting fortune on earth. Immense capital is never stored in one place. It is not piled up in a vulnerable heap where a single bad economic event, a hostile litigant, an unforeseen liability, or an unexpected personal emergency can reach across the entire chessboard and take everything from you. Your wealth is quiet precisely because it is distributed across a meticulously designed ecosystem. A portion of your capital is deployed inside actively growing operating businesses. Another portion is held inside long-term global investment portfolios. Pieces of your estate live inside distinct real estate entities, inside dedicated liquidity reserves, inside regulated fiduciary structures, and inside long-term generational trusts designed to protect your family long after you are gone. From the outside, your life simply looks calm, organized, and unshakable. Nobody sees the legal partitions, the asset protection firewalls, the professional governance protocols, or the carefully managed tax efficiencies working tirelessly behind the scenes on your behalf. They just see a woman sitting comfortably in her realm, operating with total serenity, completely impervious to the financial anxieties that consume ordinary lives. And honestly, when you reflect on the sheer beauty and power of the system you built, you almost feel a righteous anger that nobody in normal education ever bothered to teach women how these structures actually operate. You had to go out and learn the real rules of the financial game yourself. You had to stop asking why traditional financial advice feels so limiting, and you had to start analyzing the blueprints of historical families who solved these exact problems over a century ago. That is precisely where your system began. You did not invent your wealth architecture from an empty canvas. You took your deepest inspirations directly from the historical blueprint of the Rockefeller family. When ordinary people hear the name Rockefeller, their minds immediately jump to cultural tropes of boundless oil empires, Gilded Age mansions, and unimaginable corporate power. But when you studied their history with the sharp eye of a female estate builder, you realized that their true genius wasn't just how rapidly John D. Rockefeller accumulated fortune in the 19th century. Their real triumph was how they figured out how to make an immense capital pool survive across multiple generations, across major political revolutions, across devastating global depressions, across major transformations in tax regimes, and across an ever-expanding family tree of descendants who might easily have wasted every cent if left without guidance. The early Rockefeller pioneers understood that an unsecured, undivided mountain of personal liquid cash is essentially a giant target on the owner's back. So they pioneered the institutional transition from individual money ownership to systematic family wealth management. They shifted from saying this money belongs to me personally to saying this capital lives inside specialized entities designed to serve specific purposes for the benefit of generations to come. You absorbed that philosophy down to your marrow, and you adapted its mechanics to fit the modern digital world, your specific country of residence, and your personal risk terrain. Take a deep breath and look at the absolute transformation that occurred inside your mind over the past few years. There was a time when your greatest badge of financial security was logging into a mobile banking app and seeing a large, impressive personal cash balance staring back at you. Today, you realize that keeping tens of millions of dollars entirely in personal cash under your own legal identity is nothing short of structural negligence. Why? Because when everything sits directly under your personal legal name, your entire life becomes financially interconnected in the most dangerous way possible. If you own a piece of commercial real estate personally, if you run a high-growth operating business personally, if you hold your primary family residence personally, and if you retain your major investment accounts in your individual name, then one unforeseen legal disaster occurring in any single corner of your life can spread to threaten everything else. An accident occurring on a tenant's property, an aggressive breach of contract lawsuit aimed at your enterprise, or an unexpected liability claim could potentially cross over and encumber your family's safety net, your children's educational trusts, and your long-term retirement security. To ensure your $100 million estate could never be toppled by a localized shock, you built an unyielding system of legal architecture. Think of it like engineering a modern supertanker or an advanced high-rise tower. You would never construct a massive ship with just one gigantic hollow interior hull. If that ship hits a reef and breaches the outer metal in one small section, water rapidly fills the whole vessel, and the entire ship sinks to the bottom of the ocean. Instead, marine engineers partition the lower decks of ocean vessels into individual, self-contained watertight bulkheads. If an unexpected emergency fractures one small cabin, that precise compartment floods, but the heavy iron steel doors on either side hold fast, locking the damage into one isolated space while the rest of the ship continues sailing smoothly onward. You designed your fortune with exact, disciplined legal bulkheads. You divided your capital into distinct functional layers, ensuring that operational risks in one domain can never breach the protected reserves of another. Let us walk together through the exact layers of your wealth defense system, the very framework you use every day to safeguard your financial empire. And as you recognize the precision of this playbook, take a second right now to like this video and share it with another ambitious woman who refuses to settle for ordinary financial survival. Every time you engage, the algorithm carries these rare, empowering architectural principles out to countless other women who desperately need to understand that lasting wealth is not an untouchable luxury, but an intentional strategy they have the absolute right to learn and claim for themselves. Your first structural layer is what you call your shielded emergency liquidity reserve. This is your operational fortress of immediately accessible, high-stability capital. You do not store this money in volatile, high-risk equity markets or lock it away inside non-liquid 5-year private equity vintages, because the whole purpose of this reserve is instant deployment and peace of mind. It sits inside secure, top-tier global institutions, structured across highly liquid cash equivalents, short-term treasury instruments, and capital-protected accounts. The purpose of this first layer isn't to chase aggressive investment returns or generate outsized yields. Its sole job is to give you unyielding personal stability and total operational autonomy. If a global economic panic temporarily freezes capital markets, if a sudden health challenge hits your family, or if a unique business acquisition demands immediate liquidity, you never have to force sell your long-term investment assets at depressed valuations just to raise cash. Your liquidity reserve acts as your personal financial shock absorber, shielding your broader estate from the emotional friction of daily economic noise. From that solid foundation of immediate liquidity, your system expands outward into your second layer, your global diversified long-term investment engine. Here is where the bulk of your productive wealth compounds quietly day after day, year after year. Yet even inside this massive investment portfolio, You refuse to succumb to concentration risk or institutional dependency. You spread your capital strategically across global public equities, sovereign debt instruments, private credit facilities, real asset allocations, and enduring enterprises around the world. More importantly, you make sure these asset portfolios aren't just parked directly under your simple personal Social Security number or personal national identification card. You manage these extensive capital investments through sophisticated corporate and fiduciary holding structures. You understand that diversification isn't just about owning stocks across different industrial sectors. True sophistication means diversifying your custodian institutions, diversifying your operational jurisdictions, and diversifying your asset classes so that no single systemic banking failure or regional policy shift can wipe out your family's generational compounding engine. Now let us step into the third most operationally dynamic layer of your wealth empire: your high-growth operating businesses and entrepreneurial enterprises. As a powerful female founder and executive, your businesses represent your intellectual passion, your active cash flow engine, and your primary vehicles of commercial value creation. But because business operations inevitably intersect with employees, commercial tenants, third-party vendors, regulatory compliance mandates, and market competitive friction, operational enterprises carry an inherently elevated risk profile compared to passive cash reserves. To neutralize those operational exposures, you executed one of the smartest architectural moves in your Rockefeller playbook. You totally divorced the operational execution of your businesses from the legal ownership of your most valuable foundational assets. Your high-velocity operational companies, the entities that hire staff, sign customer contracts, deal with public vendors, and interact directly with daily commercial life, do not directly hold your high-value family real estate, your proprietary brand intellectual property, or your massive accumulated liquid capital pools. Instead, you strategically house your core intellectual property, your foundational tech infrastructure, and your irreplaceable commercial real estate within entirely separate, quiet holding entities that operate well outside the chaotic line of operational fire. Your active operational company simply leases access to those vital corporate assets from your secure holding structures through rigorous, documented, market-rate commercial agreements. If an operational dispute, an aggressive corporate lawsuit, or a localized commercial failure ever strikes your public operating company, any attacking litigator or ambitious challenger looking at that entity's balance sheet realizes they are aiming at an operational shell with minimal vulnerable net worth. The true underlying treasure, your real estate, your intellectual patents, and your accumulated reserves, remains safely secured behind heavy iron bulkheads inside entirely different, legally isolated holding vaults. And when it comes to your expansive global real estate investments, your commercial developments, your high-end multifamily properties, your private agricultural holdings, and your personal luxury residences, you execute this protective principle with laser precision through your fourth structural layer. You never commit the amateur financial mistake of holding multiple distinct property assets within a single generalized company or, worse, inside your own personal name. In jurisdictions where the legal system supports it, such as across the United States, you leverage advanced corporate tools like series limited liability companies or separate asset holding entities. By establishing distinct corporate subcells or independent legal entities for each real estate holding, you create an unassailable legal barrier around every individual property. If an unfortunate accident occurs at one of your multifamily apartment complexes across town, resulting in an aggressive liability claim, that legal threat remains rigorously trapped inside the strict legal perimeter of that single property's operating cell. The litigants cannot cross over to encumber your luxury penthouse real estate, your thriving commercial office buildings, or your secure liquid wealth portfolio, because every asset stands safely contained behind its own independent, legally unbreachable firewall. Yet, as you examine the sophisticated architecture of your four structural layers, you always keep one essential distinction front and center in your philosophy. There is a tremendous, uncompromising difference between legitimate, disciplined wealth architecture and illegal, fraudulent asset concealment. The internet is endlessly polluted with charming financial charlatans and amateur online advisors selling naive investors on the romantic Hollywood illusion of totally uncoordinated, secretive offshore hiding spots. They whisper magical tales of setting up anonymous paper shell companies in remote tropical island jurisdictions, installing puppet nominal directors, transferring suitcases of capital into unregistered bank accounts, and pretending that tax reporting obligations and governmental financial oversight miraculously vanish into thin air. You smile at that sort of amateur advice because you understand how global international financial compliance actually functions in the 21st century. Modern global financial systems operate under extensive transparency frameworks, rigorous know-your-customer protocols, comprehensive international automatic information exchanges like the Common Reporting Standard, and strict beneficial ownership disclosure requirements enforced by legitimate global banks. Attempting to artificially bury wealth in untraceable shadows by lying to financial institutions or fabricating fraudulent ownership declarations is not asset preservation. It is simply inviting an eventual catastrophic legal collapse, devastating compliance penalties, and severe criminal exposure that can destroy everything you built overnight. Your entire philosophy of wealth management rests upon absolute legal authenticity. You do not build offshore or domestic structures to lie about who controls an asset, nor do you establish complex entity networks to evade lawful taxation in your home jurisdiction. Every company, trust, and partnership within your wealth system serves a documented, economically substantive purpose. Your entities hold real bank accounts, file accurate jurisdictional tax declarations, maintain clear operating logs, and stand on rock-solid legal ground. When you adapt your wealth framework across international borders or align it with the unique legal codes of whatever country you reside in, you focus entirely on legitimate local equivalents of enduring structural tools. In common law jurisdictions like the United States, Canada, Australia, or the United Kingdom, you might utilize sophisticated irrevocable asset protection trusts, generation-skipping dynasty trusts, private limited liability companies, and structured testamentary arrangements. If you are operating within continental European frameworks or civil law jurisdictions across Latin America or Asia, where Anglo-Saxon common law trusts may not be natively recognized, you achieve those exact same protective outcomes by deploying specialized tools like private family foundations, institutional Stiftungen, holding corporations, regulated wealth management funds, or carefully architected fiduciary arrangements. The labels and regulatory codes may change from country to country, but the foundational Rockefeller principles of your strategy remain universal. Legally segregate high-risk operational activities from low-risk capital reserves, document authentic ownership through legitimate institutional channels, operate with uncompromising tax compliance, rely on licensed local legal counsel, and never make the critical mistake of blurring the operational boundary between your corporate wealth system and your private everyday consumer spending. By grounding your system entirely in undisputed legal transparency and economic reality, your structures gain impenetrable resilience. If a commercial competitor, an aggressive creditor, or an adverse litigant ever decides to scrutinize your financial arrangements, they do not discover some flimsy, illegal tax evasion scheme that dissolves under judicial examination. They run straight into an unshakable wall of lawfully organized, impeccably maintained corporate bulkheads designed specifically to protect an enduring family legacy against unmerited attacks, operational disasters, and chaotic externalities. That is true financial invincibility. Total legal protection achieved through absolute clarity, structural rigor, and strategic architectural forethought. Now let us explore one of the most brilliant, often misunderstood operational tools, living right at the heart of your wealth framework: strategic high-value insurance architecture. When ordinary consumer households hear the word insurance, their minds immediately conjure up mundane household realities like mandatory car insurance policies, simple residential property coverage, or straightforward personal term life contracts designed simply to replace a breadwinner's salary in an emergency. As a multimillionaire shaping an extensive estate, you view customized insurance architecture through a completely different lens. For immense estates like yours, institutional insurance wrappers and highly structured permanent life contracts do not serve as simple burial policies or basic family safety nets. You utilize advanced tools, such as irrevocable life insurance trusts, customized private placement life insurance frameworks, or enterprise key person liquidity structures, to solve one of the most profound structural challenges facing major generational estates: immediate tax-efficient liquidity during moments of transition. Think about what actually happens when the founder of a massive, complex business empire unexpectedly passes away or experiences severe incapacity. If a family's 90-figure fortune is predominantly tied up in highly illiquid assets, such as active commercial real estate developments, privately held equity shares in high-growth companies, agricultural land holdings, or foundational intellectual property, the sudden arrival of multi-million-dollar estate tax liabilities, complex partner buyout obligations, or inheritance restructuring demands can trigger an immediate liquidity crisis for surviving family members. Without an intentional mechanism to deliver immediate, liquid cash directly into the hands of your intended successors, your loved ones could be trapped in a desperate financial corner. They might be forced to hastily liquidate treasured family real estate properties during a harsh real estate recession, sell vital shares of your core operating businesses to competitive rivals at massive fire sale discounts, or borrow massive amounts of burdensome bridge debt just to satisfy immediate mandatory tax settlements and structural settlements. You totally eliminated that catastrophic succession risk from your family's future. By weaving structured life insurance contracts directly into dedicated, irrevocable fiduciary trusts outside of your taxable estate, you created a powerful, guaranteed liquidity engine that triggers instantly at the exact second of generational transition. When that inevitable transition arrives decades down the road, your trust instantly receives a massive injection of immediate tax-free liquid cash from your underlying insurance carriers. Your legal trustees can instantly deploy those liquid funds to cover all mandatory jurisdictional taxation obligations, execute clean corporate buyout agreements, and settle any transitional family debts, all without ever being forced to sell a single piece of your prime commercial real estate, without surrendering equity control of your beloved operating enterprises, and without ever compromising the long-term compounding trajectory of your core investment portfolios. This master strategy allows your productive capital assets to remain untouched, intact, and continuing to generate compounding wealth for your family across generations. That is the genius of thinking like a true Rockefeller owner. You never view insurance as a routine consumer expenditure. You deploy it as an advanced financial bridge designed specifically to insulate your real physical and corporate assets from the destructive volatility of forced emergency liquidations. To successfully direct, coordinate, and oversee an integrated wealth architecture of this magnitude, balancing global investment portfolios, multi-sell real estate networks, operating enterprises, international tax alignments, and long-term liquidity trusts, you quickly realize that you could not handle every administrative detail on your own at your kitchen table. As your capital empire expanded toward the $100 million milestone and beyond, you transitioned out of solo financial management and implemented another powerful historical practice of elite capital builders. You assembled your own dedicated family office structure. Whether you established an entirely private in-house single-family office employing your own specialized executive teams, or partnered with a highly sophisticated, multidisciplinary institutional multifamily office, your overarching core mission remained completely aligned. Establishing a unified command center dedicated entirely to managing the structural, administrative, and strategic continuity of your wealth ecosystem. Before you implemented this unified administrative architecture, you undoubtedly experienced the frustrating communication silos that plague typical high-net-worth professionals. Your independent corporate legal counsel didn't have real-time visibility into the upcoming global transactions being managed by your investment advisor. Your international tax accountants weren't completely clued into the specific real estate asset protection structures being designed by your estate planning attorneys, and your corporate business leadership remained totally isolated from the long-term educational objectives of your personal succession plan. Left unmanaged, these fragmented professional silos inevitably breed costly structural mistakes, missed tax optimization opportunities, conflicting legal documents, and unnecessary exposure to regulatory risks. Your family office eliminates that institutional friction once and for all. By bringing your core tax strategists, legal structuring counsel, corporate asset custodians, risk management planners, and investment managers together around a single collaborative structural table, you transform a disorganized collection of advisory opinions into a seamlessly aligned, proactive operational engine. However, as a seasoned female business leader, you also recognize a critical psychological reality that often traps wealthy families. Simply gathering specialized professionals inside a customized family office does not automatically grant immunity from operational mistakes or insider financial risks. In fact, concentrating extraordinary administrative authority and sensitive data across a tightly knit circle of human advisors creates an all-new security vulnerability that demands exceptional discipline. The risk of sophisticated internal fraud, unauthorized digital compromises, social engineering attacks, and negligent administrative oversights. At your level of success, sophisticated financial threats no longer look like armed street robbers breaking into physical bank vaults. They come disguised as meticulously manipulated wire transfer invoices, spoofed corporate email authorizations, fraudulent digital signatures, or trusted administrative insiders exploiting lax financial controls to quietly siphon off resources unnoticed. Because you understand this reality, you instilled absolute operational rigor throughout your family office governance. You instituted uncompromising two-person sign-off protocols and cryptographic multi-signature approvals for any capital movement exceeding strict monetary thresholds. You implemented mandatory annual, third-party operational audits conducted by completely independent forensic accounting firms to objectively verify every asset valuation, account balance, and structural expense report. You embedded advanced cybersecurity defenses and secure digital communications protocols to protect your sensitive legal records, corporate identities, and family personal schedules from hostile surveillance or identity compromise. Above all, you enforced a non-negotiable operational tenet throughout your organization. No single executive, financial advisor, or legal counselor, no matter how deeply trusted or long-tenured, is ever granted unchecked, unmonitored operational authority over your capital reserves or legal structures. By institutionalizing systemic transparency and distributed oversight right inside your private administration, you ensure that your family office functions as an unbreakable shield for your empire, completely safe from internal decay or external exploitation. If this deeply intentional approach to structural ownership resonates with your internal vision of wealth, take a second right now to leave a comment below with just one powerful word: architecture. Because simply typing out that definitive concept publicly anchors your mindset, shifting your focus away from superficial consumer money myths and straight toward the sophisticated structural frameworks that truly sustain generational empires over centuries. Let that single word be your visible declaration that you refuse to settle for fleeting cash accumulation when you have the intelligence and drive to architect an unshakable family dynasty. Yet, even as we marvel at the pristine efficiency of your multi-layered legal bulkheads, your institutional investment engines, your strategic insurance firewalls, and your sophisticated family office administration, you recognize a humbling historical truth that every enduring financial founder inevitably discovers. You could commission the most brilliant tax attorneys on earth, file the most impenetrable legal trust declarations across optimal global jurisdictions, and accumulate $100 million of prime productive capital assets, and still witness that entire majestic fortune unravel and disappear within a mere generation or two, if you neglect the single most critical structural responsibility of your legacy: educating and preparing your children to become capable stewards of your wealth. Throughout modern financial history, countless colossal family estates have collapsed not from external market crashes, bad economic investments, or predatory commercial litigation, but from internal human entropy and generational neglect. The well-known historical adage that fortunes routinely go from shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations reflects a tragic cultural pattern. An ambitious, hard-working founder builds an extraordinary empire through relentless grit and calculated structural disciple. Their children grow up enjoying the comfortable consumer lifestyles generated by that capital without fully mastering the foundational work ethic or administrative architecture that created it. And by the time the 3rd generation assumes legal control, the disconnected heirs treat the ancestral estate as an endless personal automated teller machine, squandering the accumulated capital in reckless spending, chaotic emotional feuds, and poor financial choices until the vault is entirely bare. As an enlightened female wealth architect, you looked directly at that sobering cultural statistic and made an ironclad promise to your lineage: you would never allow your hard-earned legacy to be destroyed by the entitlement of unprepared heirs. You understood early on that the most dangerous presence inside a wealthy family structure isn't always the intentionally rebellious, wasteful child. Very often, it is the well-meaning, deeply loved child who is systematically shielded from financial reality, totally excluded from administrative discussions, never trusted with financial education, and then suddenly handed unrestricted legal authority over a massive capital empire in the emotional aftermath of an unexpected generational succession. Handing tens of millions of dollars of unguided liquidity directly to an unprepared young adult isn't a gesture of generous family love. It is an irresponsible invitation to personal ruin, psychological paralysis, financial exploitation by opportunistic sycophants, and catastrophic financial erosion. To guarantee that your heirs receive your fortune as an empowering structural responsibility, rather than a destructive emotional burden, you built generational educational mentorship directly into the operational fabric of your wealth system. Long before your children ever reach adulthood or acquire direct legal control over their designated family trusts, you gently introduce them to the philosophical principles of wealth stewardship. You do not dump complex tax codes or massive accounting ledgers onto their shoulders overnight. You guide them step by step through consistent, purposeful family conversations designed to cultivate sound judgment, emotional maturity, and deep financial literacy. During regular, well-structured family meetings, you gather your family around a thoughtful discussions table. Not merely to boast about soaring real estate appraisals or impressive investment compounding numbers, but to illuminate the true meaning, responsibility, and historical legacy of your wealth architecture. You take the time to carefully explain how commercial enterprises operate, demonstrating the critical distinction between corporate gross revenue, net profit, tax reserves, and reinvested capital. You clearly illustrate why physical commercial real estate holdings cannot simply be immediately tapped for trivial consumption without compromising operational integrity. You openly share the foundational stories of the setbacks, sacrifices, early mistakes, and quiet victories that marked your personal entrepreneurial journey, ensuring your heirs understand that enduring wealth is never an accidental stroke of luck, but the direct byproduct of deliberate strategic thinking and relentless discipline. You demystify the core operational mechanisms of investments, helping your family grasp the reality of market risk, the long-term magic of compounding interest, the absolute necessity of maintaining liquid financial reserves, and the essential critical reasoning skills needed to immediately recognize and reject manipulative, fraudulent investment proposals. More importantly, you use these deliberate educational milestones to clarify the true values and broader humanitarian purpose driving your wealth empire. Just as the historical Rockefeller heirs transformed their foundational oil fortune into an internationally respected engine for massive public philanthropy, scientific medical research, institutional education, and environmental preservation, you establish clear social purposes for a meaningful share of your capital structure. Whether through a formalized private family foundation, structured charitable remainder trusts, or strategic social impact endowment initiatives, you engage your growing children directly in the administration of family philanthropy. By giving your next generation early operational responsibility over charitable allocations, guiding them to evaluate deserving educational scholarship grants, analyze community development initiatives, and oversee real-world social impact metrics, you transform financial wealth from a self-serving status symbol into a powerful tool for civic impact and ethical duty. Through this conscious mentorship framework, your children learn that possessing access to an immense family trust is not an unconditional personal spending allowance or an open invitation to self-indulgence. They come to deeply understand that true financial inheritance is a profound human stewardship responsibility. They understand that their primary mission in life is not simply to consume the productive fruits of your life's labor, but to serve as dedicated, competent custodians of an enduring family institution, one tasked with actively preserving, thoughtfully growing, and meaningfully deploying that legacy for the benefit of generations who have not yet even been born. By intertwining disciplined corporate structuring with compassionate, transparent generational mentorship, you close the final vulnerability in your financial architecture. Your physical real estate stays secure behind rigorous corporate entity barriers. Your operating enterprises run dynamically without ever placing your family liquidity reserves in operational jeopardy. Your international diversified portfolios compound quietly under the protective oversight of multidisciplinary family office advisors. Your strategic life insurance frameworks remain primed to deliver instantaneous succession liquidity whenever structural transitions arrive. And your well-prepared heirs stand poised to step into leadership not as entitled spenders, but as proud, knowledgeable architects capable of guiding your family dynasty into an enduring, prosperous future. Take one final look out that quiet office window above the bustling city skyline, feeling the solid steering wheel of your life firmly under your grasp, and acknowledge the absolute beauty of everything you have built. You started your journey out in the ordinary world, surrounded by heavy societal doubts and familiar financial myths, yet you chose to reject the polite lie that extraordinary wealth architecture was a privilege reserved solely for a select group of insiders. You refused to be a passive observer waiting for luck. You became a curious, unstoppable student of systematic ownership, mastering the legal rules, structural protocols, and enduring architectural frameworks that actually make fortunes unshakable. Never forget the deep liberation embedded in your mindset. Real wealth management is never about anxiously building a single hidden vault under your house or desperately concealing capital from legal reality in panic. Real wealth management is an intentional, deeply grounded architecture of purposeful separation, rigorous regulatory compliance, proactive administrative controls, multi-generational education, and clear strategic forethought. You didn't just build a big balance sheet. You built an empowering, unbreakable life operating system that will protect your independence, fund your visions, and support your lineage across decades and centuries to come. If this exhaustive blueprint has shattered old money myths and illuminated the thrilling reality of true wealth architecture for you, do not let this moment pass without action. Hit the subscribe button right now to join our unstoppable community of female estate builders. Give this video a powerful like to amplify these insights across the algorithm, and write down your immediate commitment in the comments below. Let your journey toward unbreakable institutional wealth stewardship begin today, because you have earned every single piece of this extraordinary knowledge, and you are ready to claim your rightfully owned place as the undisputed architect of your own enduring dynasty.